Good morning, everybody. Welcome into Morning in the Valley. It is Monday, August the 25th. Glad you are with us. Happy 52nd anniversary to mom and dad, two of the 8 people watching this morning. Happy anniversary. Glad you're all with us today. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're going to talk with Vance Sawyer, one half of the March to the Arch podcast. And it's been about 3 weeks since he dropped a little grenade on all of us saying, look out for Missouri Valley Conference expansion in 26-27. So we'll talk with Vance about all of that as we are T-minus 10 weeks, 70 days from the opener of the college basketball season, but maybe some shaking up about to happen in the Valley. So we'll talk with Vance about that here in just a couple of minutes. If you haven't done so already, please help us out. Head over to YouTube, search out Morning in the Valley. You can subscribe for free to the program there. Like it, share it, comment on it, all of that, and helps us continue to grow. As again, now 10 weeks away from the start of the 2025-26 season. All right, we started this morning with some recruiting news that looked like 2026 recruiting news, and then suddenly it got a little more urgent than that. If you go to Drake's men's basketball roster page on their official website, as of last night, which was the last time I did the actual counting, there were 12 names on that roster. And in this era now of revenue sharing and the house settlement and all that stuff that we've tried really hard not to talk about as of late, as much as we can, of course, all Division I men's basketball programs that have opted into the house settlement now have the ability to have 15 scholarships on their roster. Drake has 12 as of this morning. Now, those are at least the guys that are on the website. Maybe the folks in the SID department on vacation or some stuff just hasn't been, the I's haven't been dotted, T's crossed, all that with a couple guys that maybe to get all the way to 15. But the main takeaway is there is some space for immediate additions if you would so like. And what we saw over the weekend is that a young man by the name of LJ Rush from Charlotte, North Carolina, announced his commitment to the Bulldogs. He is a 2026 recruit, has had a lot of interest, has had offers most recently from Boise State, and these within the last year, because you see these guys that get offers 2-3 years ago, and it's like, in the end, those aren't maybe necessarily committable offers, but at least trying to get some relationship with the young man from an early going. Had offers from Boise State, Jacksonville, Florida State, Rutgers, UT Arlington, Stetson, Campbell, Middle Tennessee, East Carolina, Toledo, St. Bonaventure, and obviously Drake, who offered just a couple of weeks ago on August the 9th. Well, LJ Rush has decided I'm committing to Drake. And then very, very short amount of time after the announcement came that LJ Rush was committing to Drake, the next announcement came that LJ Rush said, oh, by the way, I'm no longer a 2026 recruit. I am reclassifying into the class of 2025, and I'm coming to Des Moines, and I'm ready to join the team immediately. So a late, we have seen some late July ads. We've seen some August ads. This one's knocking on the door of September. But LJ Rush out of Charlotte, North Carolina, 5'10" point guard, listed by many of the recruiting folks as the number one point guard prospect in that 2026 class, now coming out of 2025 in the state of North Carolina, played at the 101 Academy, the prep school there in Charlotte. But he is now a name Valley folks are going to have to get used to because he is headed to Des Moines to join the Bulldog program and head coach Eric Henderson. How much of an impact he can have right away after missing the summer, time will tell. But there is still obviously 10 weeks to sort of crash course and do his best to get ready to have some sort of impact on this 25-26 roster. We had some scheduling news on the women's side as Lindenwood announced their schedule out of the Ohio Valley Conference. but it had an impact on the ladies in Des Moines, as Lindenwood announcing they will travel to Drake on December. That's actually December the 3rd, not December the 13th. December the 3rd, Drake will host Lindenwood. Lindenwood, a good team last year. They were 23-11, second in the Ohio Valley Conference. They were 16-4 in the league, lost to Tennessee Tech in overtime in the OVC tournament championship game. So had a chance to get to the NCAA tournament. Again, you win 23 games, won 2 games, then WNIT got to the Super 16 in the WNIT. So a good addition, a good solid addition there for Drake in their non-conference schedule, as they will welcome in Lindenwood. Speaking of scheduling, and I really liked, and like Bradley put the men's schedule, they put their schedule out a couple weeks ago, a week and a half, I guess, or so ago. And they did a little social media breakout over the weekend with head coach Brian Wardle. And I mean, he went on for 5 minutes, which I thought was great, because you don't necessarily, sometimes you see it in, in press releases and maybe some little blurbs in there, but usually it's a this is what we like about our schedule as a whole, but not necessarily kind of breaking it down game by game. And this is what we're getting. This is maybe why we have the game on the schedule, and so on. And Coach Wardle did that, in this 5-minute video. And if you haven't seen it yet, you can go over to Bradley's Twitter account, X account there, and watch the whole thing. But I wanted just to show you just a brief clip at the beginning as he goes into the schedule as a whole, and then goes through the exhibitions, but then also talks about the season opener against St. Bonaventure in the Field of 68 opening day marathon. So here is Brian Wardle on his schedule.
To get a very competitive, challenging schedule. That's where what our program wants and expects, and our fans expect. But we have to get our 4 quad 1, quad 2s. And so when I say quad 1, quad 2s, I mean top 100 teams. And so we're always trying to get as many top 100 teams as we can that will play us on our schedule, and we were able to do that. And so I'm super excited about that. I also wanted to get 2 challenging exhibitions. The rule has changed now where you can play a game, Division I opponents in front of fans. And we were able to do that with going to Green Bay for an exhibition back where I used to coach, and also bringing St. Louis here to Peoria. So I'm very excited about that, because we're going to need that high level of competition, see what everyone can do, different lineups, different scenarios, different defenses, offenses, all that. So I wanted to challenge us in exhibitions, and then definitely had to get our 4 quad 1 and quad 2s. I believe they've had 4 20-win seasons out of the last 5. Mark Schmidt is a great coach. I got a lot of respect for him. They're going to return, I think, as a top 5 team in the Atlantic 10. So we're going to be right out of the gate, neutral site, in a really cool tournament that Field of 68 puts on. I got the guys' attention, and I like playing someone really good first game of the year, because you got your guys' attention all off season, especially as you get closer to game day.
And that was a similar message to what Coach Wardle talked with me about when we had him on 3-4 weeks ago. Of just, you love that early game. It's something you can build to. You're not playing some NAIA program to open the year where the guys are kind of like, whatever. St. Bonaventure is legit, and so that will be a good game for them. And again, you listen to, he kind of goes through the whole schedule. Again, go to Bradley's Twitter account. You can hear all of that. But the games that are really highlighted, as he talked about, those 4 Q1, Q2 games, are going to San Francisco. That should be a real good test for them to welcome in Washington State into Peoria. And then you get the MTE down in Orlando, opening with Princeton. And then really the game that could be the game is the second round game, where you could end up taking on a UC San Diego team that won 30 games last year. Now, they are projected to take a step back this year, but I mean, they were a top 50 team in the country last year. Won 30 games. We're 30-4 going to the NCAA tournament. And so the Q1, Q2, sort of the scheduling principles. Everybody's supposed to have 4 of those at least on their schedule in the non-conference. And there's some fuzzy math in it, only because you are asking, this is all, again, projections. And we are hoping these teams are going to be a quality opponent for us this year to help our schedule. Again, I beat on the drum from a year ago. Drake in that MTE, playing a Miami of Florida team, getting a win over Miami of Florida, thinking that's great, and then they stunk. So it's like, that happens sometime. But in the next breath, I don't know the people that put UC San Diego on their schedule a year ago thought that was going to end up being a top 50 game, but it was. So I think my understanding is that they sort of take there's sort of a rolling average of a couple of years, and over a couple of years they get into that top 100 range, and that's sort of the pool of teams that that the Valley teams can go choose from. But in the end, you've got San Francisco, you got Washington State, you have Princeton, you might get UC San Diego or Temple in the next game, which is another potential really nice game as well on the board for Brian Wardle. So go check that out. It's about 5 minutes long, and I thought it was really well done by the program and their social media team, just sort of getting some content out, but getting Coach Wardle talk about it's not the most groundbreaking information, but it also this is what we're trying to do, and this is what we tried to accomplish, and this is what we got from a scheduling standpoint. All right, time now for our conversation with Vance Sawyer. He is the co-host of the March to the Arch podcast, and it was 22 days ago, March. I wish we could get to March. I don't know if I want to go back to March or get ahead to March. We all love March. August the 2nd. It was about 7:30 p.m., I believe, and he sort of threw out I'm hearing the Missouri Valley Conference will expand to 14 teams in 26-27, and that got everybody stirred up. So we're going to talk with Vance in just a moment. He is somebody now that lives up in the Bloomington, Illinois area. He is a grown man with a family and a child, and the whole thing. And it's he and I sort of indirectly go way back when I was in the TV world, and he grew up in Metropolis, Illinois, which is on the southern tip of Illinois. And we were, I did TV in Paducah, Kentucky, which is just 10 minutes away from that. And so we before we got on and recorded this conversation last night, we were laughing about one of my very first games covering Southern Illinois at the SIU Arena, and these two little kids came running up and recognized me, which was amazing, because we were sort of in enemy territory, just the way the TV markets are set up, that you just didn't expect anybody in Carbondale to have any idea, an hour and change away from Paducah, to have any idea who we were. And then these two little kids came up and were like, Jeff Bidwell, and it's awesome to see you. And I mean, I don't know, 12 maybe. And then he's like, oh, we're from Metropolis. And I was like, all right, well, that doesn't count, because you're right down the road. So I would hope you would know who we were. You would recognize us at the very least. But we were talking about that, and I was like, do you think that was you? And he laughed. He's like, I would not put that past me whatsoever. And then we also, when he played some high school football, gave him a shout out on our high school football show, which he still looks back at and laughs about. So good dude. And another great ambassador here for the Missouri Valley Conference, and but maybe a little bit of a newsbreaker. We will see. He is, and we talk about that. Just not somebody that throws stuff out there. He's got some. There's some teeth behind what he has heard, and so we will get into that, and we will do that right now. My conversation we recorded last night with the co-host of the March to the Arch podcast. Here is Vance Sawyer. All right, we are joined now by Vance Sawyer from the March to the Arch podcast. You know him as Vance. So many, there's so many people in this world. Bono, Pele, Cher, need just one name. We've got Vance from the March to the Arch podcast. I had to do we had to go deep into the Google machine to find out what Vance's last name was, but we have found it. And I feel like we've doxed him to the world today, Vance. Welcome to Morning in the Valley. We had your partner Baker on a couple weeks ago, and really the main thing I took out of that conversation was that he feels like he does most of the heavy lifting on the podcast. Do you care to comment on that?
He does a lot of things behind the scenes. He is the glue guy. He does a lot of the heavy lifting, and I am glad he is my partner in crime, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
Happy to do it. You two are wonderful ambassadors for the league, despite the fact that your favorite team allegiances seems to always be just waiting for somebody to punch the other one in the nose. So it has been 3 weeks ago that you sort of lit the fuse and threw the grenade and walked away from it. And hey, everybody, next year I'm hearing that 14 teams are coming to the Valley. What has been if you could best sum up sort of the response that you've gotten from all corners of the Missouri Valley Conference after that little Sunday night Vance bomb that got dropped?
Yeah, I would say I would summarize it maybe 2 words: intrigue and disdain. Are the 2 words I would use to kind of summarize the interactions I've gotten, whether it be, you asking all the other Valley, I would say connections we've made over the years with the March the Arch podcast. But I would say fundamentally the reaction has been, why 14, why that number, and like who, like that's what everyone wants to know is who,
Right.
What's the next part of that tweet, was really the reaction we got.
You have made a very explicit point when you guys had your latest March of the Arch podcast talking about it, and Baker talked about it with me. And he's like, these are not willy-nilly tweets that get thrown out, and that you had legitimate sourcing behind it. And I won't be like 87% of the other people that are like, who's your source? Who'd you hear this from? But was this I guess my only question about the source was, did you wander into this conversation, or did someone sort of reach out to you that, hey, I am hearing?
Yeah, once again, thanks for kind of setting that up. Is that we do take this seriously, right? We are not one of those Valley fans or podcasts or Twitter accounts or X accounts that just throw stuff up and just hope it becomes true. This was truly a happenstance moment. Yes, we get all kinds of stuff that comes into our DMs throughout the season. This is not the case with this one. Truly happenstance. We sat on it for a while, to be really honest with you, Jeff, just to kind of play it out, think through it because of the serious nature of it. As we mentioned, or as I mentioned on our podcast, hey, we reached out to the league. We let them know when we're kind of hearing stuff, and this was enough that we felt we would put it out into the Missouri Valley ether, and felt that it was reliable enough to do so.
How does that conversation happen with the Valley? Like, I mean, is it Jack Watkins? Is it Mike Hearn? You going right to the top of the commissioner? All of the above, and how do they take whatever it is that you ask of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say we have great relationships, right? Like, Jeff, I'm going to make some assumptions. You have a great relationship with the Valley office, just with the content you're putting out with the Valley, and also, the affinity to Murray State. And we take that seriously as well. So we kind of see it, I'm not going to say a partnership because no one's paying us with this one, but we do love the league, and we don't want to put garbage out into the system. So ultimately, I would say the canned response that we normally get is, hey, the President's Council is going to, vote on anything. They'll say, hey, we haven't talked about realignment in a while is sometimes the response. They're going to do their job and not confirm anything until they're ready to put anything out into the Valley atmosphere either. But usually I would say, if I'm going to put it into like hey, is it canned PR stuff? No, it's more social than that, but it truly comes down to, it's the league presidents that are going to confirm that. We can't confirm anything. We're not hearing anything. It's usually how that conversation goes. They always appreciate it. They're always curious, right? So that's how this one went. This is how ones in the past have happened. Also, this is not the first time we've interacted on realignment. And anytime we have anyone on from the Valley offices, we're going to ask them about realignment, or we wouldn't be very good podcasters if we didn't.
Would you have expected any different answer? Have you ever gotten any different answer from anything you've thrown out at them? If whoever you spoke to was just like, Vance, it's absolute nonsense, and would that answer have caught you off guard?
Yeah, I think it would put maybe a little bit more credence if we were leaning one way or the other on it. I think that would be insightful and helpful because of the relationships, right? Like this is not a one time a year I'm reaching out to them. You know, they're great to us. They come on our show and things of that nature. So it comes down to the relationship, you know, not to sidestep it, but yeah, if it was truly a response that wasn't, I would say, the typical President's Council makes decisions, we likely wouldn't have gone with it.
Yeah. 14. When you hear 14, what was, everybody had a reaction. What was your reaction to 14?
That's a lot. I think, you know, I would say, you know, there's two camps on our podcast. So I'm going to speak for my co-host Baker here. Is Baker's all about aggressiveness and, you know, adding the right teams, which we're all about. Like if we're going to add, it's got to be the right teams. I will say, Jeff, and we talked a little bit off, I am a little bit of a Valley traditionalist. And by a little bit, I'm a lot of it. I loved 10-team Valley. I grew up on 10-team Valley. I loved when Thursday nights was at Arch Madness was for lack of a better term, the bottom of the barrel games, and those games were so much fun. Late night in St. Louis before the real thing started. So my reaction is like, also that's a lot, and it feels like it could potentially water down the league. And my, you know, hey, not ignorant to the current landscape of college basketball, my reaction is, we're gonna, like, there's no teams out there that this wouldn't be a watering down of the league. And in this time when we need however many units every other year, like we're gonna start spreading the pie a little bit more. Like that doesn't make sense to me. So that's my fan and a little bit of history there on my reaction to 14 specifically.
Counter, and I counter only to be that guy, because I'm kind of with you. Like I felt like I talked to Rocco Miller, scheduling guru, a couple months ago, and when we were talking about how do we get the Valley back to multi-bids again, and again, get to 3 or 4, forget it, let's just get to 2. How can we get 2 on a consistent basis? And he said, look, it's sometimes easier to get rid of, for lack of a better phrase, the dead weight at the bottom than try to make the top better. And we got rid of Missouri State, who you'd like to think is not going to be at the bottom forever, but they were at the bottom by a lot. And that sort of hurt things last year. The counter for me is that when Loyola Chicago came into the league, they were awful. I mean, they were awful, awful, awful. And then right coach, investments in a world before we were super investment heavy. And now they're going to the Final Four, and they're a machine and they're out. So I think that, you know, it's the old, just because something's happened in the past doesn't mean it's going to be that in the future. But that's a lot of dice rolling, I feel like, to go from 11 to 14, that you can get 3 teams that have maybe not been historically relevant to now suddenly make this giant investment and be good enough to help you.
And that's the reaction I would expect, right? Is, you know, everyone picks Loyola, you know, as the standard bearer, and the Valley did for Loyola what the Valley wanted whenever they brought in Loyola to the conference. I just kind of look out the landscape, and just with the NIL and just the dollars in it right now, how many of those teams still exist? I think in the realignment talk, there maybe is one out there that's ready to invest all in on basketball. I think right now is current Missouri Valley Conference teams have to decide which foot are they going to be in what sport, if they have that option. I know that's not the Valley makeup for all schools, but I think we got to kind of like fix our own house before we start bringing others in, using the investment word specifically.
Okay. Whether it's 12, whether it's 14, if there's bodies coming. I can't believe that we're going to stay with 11 forever, as much as I like round numbers and it's a true round robin, and coaches seem to be happy with that and so on, that folks are coming. So if you get to be king for the day, we'll start with 1. Who's your 1 that you would want it to come in to be number 12?
Yeah, absolutely. And this, I've said this on the podcast, maybe not most recent episode, but the first call I would make if I was Jeff Jackson or the President's Council is to Wichita State and make them tell us no.
Wow. You think?
If maybe I get 1.
You get 1 and hope. Is there, because ultimately they have gone to the American. That is a 1-bid league.
Yeah.
It's a 1-bid league. And so I don't know. Wow. Well, you went and You caught me off guard with that because I kind of just figure, once you don't see folks go backwards. And I don't even know that it's
Right.
necessarily backwards. I think that I think that Creighton left. They felt like they had maybe outgrown it. Wichita had outgrown it. And when you see Final Fours and Loyola, they've outgrown it. We've gone to the A-10, but it's like now as things have settled back down, is like, does it really make sense for the Loyolas of the world to be traveling to Pennsylvania and New York and all these places all the time? And Wichita, God knows, all over the place with the American. Kevin Saul, former athletic director at Murray State University. So, I know people. I can make a call for you. I can see what I can do. I don't know if we're going to get very far, but that's
yeah. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But once again, Kingmaker, that's going to be my first call. For all intents and purposes, I don't think they're really happy with the American. It's not a good fit for them. Fans we do interact with, they're always just like, gosh, I miss the Valley. I miss Arch Madness. This is a shell of what it is. Wichita State basketball is a shell of what it was, in the post Greg Marshall landscape. And so I think they kind of are looking for a reset. And I don't even know if they would look at it as a step back. Like, do I think they think they're better than the Missouri Valley Conference? Absolutely. They showed that on their way out. But the world has kind of imploded around them. So I think it's worth the call.
I think you could draw comparisons with Wichita to Southern Illinois in that it is really, you have to be commended when you are able to put together a run that goes 4, 5, 6 years, but it is hard to maintain and it is hard to continue. And obviously the Salukis now going, 2007, you got Kansas on the ropes in the Sweet 16. You've gone 6 years in a row. You are the dominant mid-major program. And then the water got turned off for 100 reasons, but the water's been turned off and it hasn't been able to come back on. I think Wichita's going through that a little bit right now, where they're like, hey, we're going to Final Fours and we're unbeaten and we're number one and this and that. I'm like, you don't think it's ever going to end, but eventually it does. And really, the only ones maybe that has left and been able to sustain it's been Creighton, and they've got they're in that major hub and such a financial gee whiz. That is you give them all the credit in the world for being able to continue. So, all right, from let's not call old friends. We need some new friends and folks that are probably coming from lower levels up, or maybe somewhere, somewhat similar, but not coming back down. Who is maybe the more realistic phone call of someone that would take the call, but then also go, yep, that's a good move for us.
Yeah. And once again, this is all Vance's opinion.
Sure.
I think you have to decide on which geographic direction is the Valley going to go first in your head. Like, are you going to go north? Are you going to go south? Are you going to go east or west? I have this feeling we're going north if we do expand. I think St. Thomas is the no-brainer. I would say everyone online once it came out, like I think everyone's on board with St. Thomas is likely in that target group. I hear Omaha. I don't know if I'm excited about Omaha by any means, but I think then they just go D1 and getting acclimated. And so I'm hearing, or you can make a case for Omaha because we've been in that. We have a footprint there. And then one that I've always talked about that I've wanted is Wisconsin, Milwaukee out of the horizon. I'd say we've gotten enough of the Horizon teams out. They're the last one that I would say, hey, they're ideal and make a pretty good fit. You got travel partners for some of the northern teams. You've got UIC as a travel partner if you needed it there. I think Milwaukee is a pretty good destination for a lot of fans to go see maybe their alma maters that aren't University of Wisconsin Milwaukee play a game in a big city. So those are three that I think are realistic and would say yes to the Valley in my mind.
And maybe this is just Kentucky bias, and honestly, they've never even popped into my head until just now. But when you're kind of looking around and you're like, Bellarmine. A team that's another new transition. I think they've been in D1 for 5 years, but they were a Division II power. They won the A-Sun didn't get to go to the NCAA tournament because they hadn't gone the 5 years. They've fallen off the last couple of years, but again, somebody it's dead in the heart of Louisville. They play at Freedom Hall. I mean, and I guess that's the next question is just, we hear about geography and TV markets and, living through, in the OVC, hey, we got St. Louis because we got SIU Edwardsville. You did not. Hey, we got Chicago because we got Loyola and we got UIC. And it's like, you did not until Loyola had Sister Jean and you got to the Final Four. What are you looking for? Like, what is the number one on the wish list of that makes them a viable candidate to me that I think they can come help us no matter where they are right now as a program? What's that quality you're looking for?
Basketball investment. And so whether that's they don't have football, that's likely the number one criteria for me. But if they do have football, it's almost like a Drake. Drake has football, but they don't pump money into it. So that is what I'm looking for is investment in basketball, or at least equitable investment in basketball compared to other revenue sports they might have there. Because honestly, I didn't know this because I know zilch about college hockey, but St. Thomas and maybe Omaha are really big D1 hockey schools. Who knew? And so they're like, well, basketball's not even their number one sport either. I was like, well, in the grand scheme of things, by default, basketball is their number one sport when it comes to NCAA money.
Yeah, that's Western Michigan, I think, won a national title in hockey this year because they throw money into that sport, and their football program's not good and basketball not good, but it's like that you're going to win what you throw cash behind, and that's it. All right. Well, hopefully, and I guess you laid it out well, and in the fine folks in West Kentucky know the timeline, that it was about a month from now. Belmont back in 2021, announced they were coming. Murray State and UIC, it was January, I guess it was, a little bit later. So we're starting to get into that window of time when we can hear. So if you have heard 14, if you have to gun to your head, is the Valley at 12? Are they at 14? Or are they at 11 when we get to 26, 27?
I still think it's 14 based on our interaction. So I've got nothing that would make me think it's not 14.
All right. We will have operators standing by for that. It's been 4.5 months since we crowned Illinois State the preseason champion. Do you have, has anything happened in the last 4 months that would, when the preseason poll comes out, give you pause that it needs to be somebody else other than Illinois State?
I don't think so. Maybe what you're alluding to there is Bowden Schoenberg's injury news that could hamper some of the Illinois State love early on. I think I truly think when the preseason comes out, it's going to be Illinois State. I think Valley media and those that vote in those polls love teams that have returning players coming back because we don't know in the NIL and transfer age what some of these pieces are going to look like. It pains me to say this, Jeff, but I think one of the biggest ceilings out there is Murray State. I think you brought in a ton of talent that maybe towards the end of the year, I think they could be right there fighting for it. Baker and I kind of talk about, we think there's probably 5 teams that could arguably be there at the end fighting for first place. And that's what's going to be fun about this year is, making sure that we all don't beat up on each other all the time to put us in a position to get 2 teams into the NCAA tournament.
So Illinois State, Northern Iowa, Bradley, Murray State, Belmont. That's the 5.
I think on paper that makes sense. I think Bradley could be at the bottom of that. Belmont maybe at the bottom that could come off. Like, I think we've got a ton of teams that could, like Southern. There's a lot of talent, and it's probably one of the tallest SIU teams I've ever seen as an SIU fan. And so I'm pretty excited about that in year 2 of Scott Nagy. And then Drake's another unknown. You talk about teams that are in that danger zone of, hey, they're riding the high. They've been riding the high for years. This is now your 3rd coach. We know what happened to SIU when they got into their 3rd coach. And so I think this is going to be a bellwether year for them. But I really like Henderson too. So, I think I just named half of the Missouri Valley Conference. And so I don't know if I feel any better about this conversation on who could actually win the league by the end of the year, other than Illinois State's going to be preseason number 1.
I feel queasy that I left a 3-time defending champion Drake Bulldogs out of the top 5 there.
I know.
Just feel sick about that. So, all right. So we'll make them even 5.5. I feel like they need to be in that top 6. Who from, if we just say that they are part of the top 6, the bottom 6, who is most likely, and you may have tipped your hand there with the hometown boys, who can crash, who can be Valpo and crash the party and get to Saturday, at least in St. Louis this year, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I tip my hand, and yes, it's going to be a homer pick, but I truly do think it's SIU. I mean, look at what happened to SIU last year when conference season rolled around. Absolutely atrocious at the beginning, and then they got things rolling and was fighting for a, one of the buys, towards the end of the year. And so, I've got to interact with Coach Nagy a couple of times. If they can get it rolling late, watch out.
He is Vance Sawyer. He is the co-host of the March to the Arch podcast, and he is, without question, a Massac County high school football legend. And we are glad that you're able to join us today on Morning in the Valley. Vance, I appreciate you as always. Look forward to each and every episode of the podcast, and make sure, go ahead and pump that out. Get that out to the 8 people listening here today, how they can listen to March to the Arch podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can listen to podcasts, you can listen to us. We try to pump out things weekly when we get in season. In the summer, it's usually about once a month. We try and do it. But if you want to follow along on X, I am at March Arch Pod. It's on the screen here. If you want to follow my co-host, Baker, at March Arch Baker. If you want to email us, marchthearchmailbag@gmail.com, or just hit us up. All of that is listed on our X account as well. So we love the interactions. We love getting DMs. We love Valley fandom. That's why we did this. Is we are 2 Valley fans. We're not big J's like Jeff Bidwell over here. We are truly fans that have kind of created a community and love having conversations with that community, which is why we end every episode with a Go Valley.
There is Vance Sawyer, and appreciate his time last night. It's going to be fascinating to watch here in the coming weeks, and really maybe coming weeks. But certainly as we get towards the top of the, flipping the calendar to 2026, when the expansion, if it happens, how it is rolled out. Again, you go back 4 years ago now, 2021, and you end up getting Belmont, you get Murray State, you get UIC, but you don't get them all at the same time. It was like Belmont came first, and when Belmont was first, that of course had it then at 10. And you're like, well, is that going to be enough? And obviously there was rumors swirling about Murray State at the time. And then they and UIC, came in a couple of months later, were announced they would be joining as well for the 2022-23 season. So it's just going to be interesting to see and who the additions will be, because as we have talked about, and will certainly, the pearls will be clutched in the coming weeks and months as new teams are discussed or added on, is that everybody that is proposed to be a new team, there's going to be countless reasons why this can't work. And you're going to hear all the reasons why this shouldn't work. And they're not the right team. And in the end, there aren't probably, and that's the thing, there's no one out there that you're like, yep, slam dunk, 100%, no question, that someone can't throw, just shoot holes in. And maybe that's just the world we live in, that everybody's going to shoot holes in everything. But there are some options. There are some options, but I think to Vance's point, the main thing is going to be, is there commitment there? Is the financial commitment there to not only come into this league to try to, be a part of our great league and to, have some financial potential windfall that maybe they have not gotten in other locations, which is why everybody makes moves up for the most part in conference realignment. But it also comes down to, are you going to make a commitment to pull your weight? And that has got to be the question that is asked, and we will see if it is answered here in the near future as we roll towards realignment season, which I know is everybody's favorite season around these parts. All right. Thanks to Vance Sawyer from the March to the Arch podcast for being with us. Coming up on Wednesday, we will talk with Robin Scher. She is the head coach of the Evansville women's program. And we'll talk with Coach Scher about the summer that was in Evansville, trying to reload that roster and see what is ahead for that Evansville program. That'll be coming up on Wednesday morning. If you haven't done so already, please head to YouTube and find Morning in the Valley. Very easy. In the search bar, Morning in the Valley. Pops right up. Subscribe for free to the program, and you can share, like, comment, all of that, and it helps us out as we continue to grow, and we could not do that without you. So thanks to all of you for being with us today. We'll be back on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. right here on Morning in the Valley.